Hi everyone, welcome back to Dimitra's Dishes. So today I'm going to make Hortopita, and it is especially for one of our viewers, Jack Camino. This one's for you. You asked for it a few months ago when I made my Spinach recipe, and I'm bringing to you my version of it. It's delicious. It's very different than any other Hortopita or greens pie that you've ever had before. I'm going to take you over the ingredients and then we're going to get started. And I also wanted to mention that I'm making this in a crostada kind of form. It's going to be more rustic and perfect for the fall that's just begun, and it's great, especially if you want to serve it for Thanksgiving, if you want to have a really nice vegetarian option for people. Delicious, healthy, and very easy to make, as is everything else. Let's go over the ingredients and then we're going to get started. For the crust, which is what we're going to begin with in a few minutes, we're going to need some cream cheese, butter, unsalted butter always, and some flour. That's it. If you didn't want to make this kind of crust, which I don't know why you wouldn't, give it a try. It's so flavorful, and it has so much depth of flavor. It's really good. You can substitute puff pastry or phyllo dough. You can do any one of those three, but give this a try. It's really good. And then let's go over the filling ingredients, which are lots of greens. I have some spinach and some baby kale here that I've boiled just a little bit, and I'll talk about that in a little while. Lots of parsley, fresh mint. I have dried dill, which is really flavorful. You can use fresh if you like. A leek, an egg, some breadcrumbs, salt, pepper, olive oil, and lots of feta cheese. We're going to begin by making the crust. And this is a really good pie crust. So I'm making a double batch because this time of year I make a lot of pies for Thanksgiving, for get-togethers, for entertaining. So this is a double batch. If you only want to make one, go ahead and cut this recipe in half, but it freezes beautifully, so you should have another one in the freezer. So make the full batch. Okay, so I'm going to start off in my tabletop mixer. You don't have to do this in the tabletop mixer. You can do this in a food processor as well. And the great thing about this, it's like a foolproof pie crust. You don't have to worry about everything being super cold, not over mixing, not under mixing. It's really easy. Once you try this, I mean, I make my apple pie with this pie crust. I make sweet, savory, you name it. Give it a try. It's easy. So anyway, so everything needs to be room temperature and nice and soft. And in it goes. And I'm just going to mix this all up until it's combined, and then I'll add the flour. So once everything is really nice and combined, we're going to add the flour a little bit at a time. Okay, so just like that, when everything is combined, we're just going to take it out and roll it into sort of like a ball. We're just going to roll this and stick everything all together and then cut it into 2 portions, and then we're going to refrigerate it or freeze it. That's it, just like that. You have 2 pie crusts ready to go. I'm going to wrap them up in plastic, and then I'm going to freeze them. If you're freezing them, freeze it for about an hour. But the best thing to do, you can make this dough up to a month before you're ready to use it, and it works perfectly. So like the beginning of the fall season, make a couple of batches of this, and then you'll have pie crust ready to go in no time. Okay, so my dough has chilled. I have 1 portion of it right here. I'm saving the other one for next time. Now, just want to lightly flour the board, and this rolls out so easily. Flour the board and also your rolling pin, and we're going to roll it out to about 14 inches, and I know that my rolling pin from here to here is about 14 inches, so I don't need to take out a ruler. And we're going to get it as close to a circle as we can, but since this is rustic and we're going to fold it over, it doesn't really matter. So to prevent it from sticking to the board, each roll or two, just kind of keep turning it, and then you'll get more of a circular shape as well. This is about 14 inches. That's perfect. Let's flatten it out so it can kind of be an even thickness, and then we're going to fold it over and transfer it to a baking sheet that's lined with some parchment paper. And just open it up like that. And we're going to leave it here, and it's going to wait for the filling, which we're going to work on next. Okay, so now that our pie crust is ready, we're going to go on to making our filling. You want to make sure the oven is preheated at 400 degrees so that way you don't have to wait for the oven. And one thing that I forgot to mention that's in the filling are lots of scallions. So we have that too. What I've done is I've chopped up my leeks, and leeks have a lot of dirt in between them, so you want to make sure you chop them up and then you wash them very, very thoroughly so that way you don't have any dirt in your filling, because you don't want that. Trust me, it's not good. So I'm going to begin by heating up my pan with some olive oil, and then I'll put the leeks in here and cook them until they're nice and soft, which should take just a few minutes. Try to not get a lot of water in there. So while that's happening, I'm going to chop up the scallions really nice and finely, and then I'll add them to the pan as well. Now, if you can't find leeks, you can substitute about half of a yellow onion to this, chop it up really finely, and that'll do the job as well. When you get down to the white part, don't use it. Just either save it for stock or put it in your garden, in your compost pile. I'm going to rinse these out, and then I'll add them to my pan. Just like that. I'm going to add my scallions to this, and I'm going to cook this down until everything is nice and soft. That should take about 5 to 7 minutes or so. So while this is cooking, I'm going to tell you about the spinach and the kale and how I did everything, so that way it's easy for you to do at home. Now, I bought baby kale, and that was easy for me to find in the supermarket, so it cooks much faster than the regular kale would cook. What I did, I just brought a pot of water to a boil, and then I boiled them for about 5 minutes. If you're using the traditional kale that you find cut up in like the big bags these days, you can find it in there. You're going to need to boil it for about 15 minutes until it gets really nice and tender. And I know in my spinach pie tutorial, I don't ever cook the greens because that kind of ruins them. But in this dish, you're going to have to do that. You're going to have to trust me on it. Otherwise, the kale is more tough than spinach is, and it just won't be as good as you want it to be. So what I did, I just boiled that, and when it was nice and tender, I strained it out, and then I also flash boiled my spinach. So I have baby spinach, about a pound of it, and I did the same thing. I boiled it for just a minute or so, and then you want to make sure you put it through a strainer and you get rid of as much of the excess water as possible. So you put it in your strainer, and you want to make sure you get as much as possible out. We are going to add some breadcrumbs to it, so if there's a little bit left, you don't have to shred it, it's fine. When it's at this stage, it's ready to be added to your filling, and look how much water releases from it. You want to make sure that's not in your pie. Now I use a combination of kale and spinach. You can use whatever is fresh in your supermarket, spinach and collard greens, whatever you like, use that. But I really love this combination, especially around this time of year. It's very fall-like. So once it cools down, just roughly chop it. Just like that. Put it in my bowl and leave it aside. And then I'll just chop up my parsley and my mint and add it to that. And it smells incredible. The leeks are completely cooked and ready. Now we're going to add them to our spinach and our herbs. This just smells so fresh. It's so healthy. Look how many good, nutritious things you have in this dish, so you definitely should make it. Especially now around this time of year, pies and crostadas, and these things are just so comforting. I'm just going to give it a nice mix. Season with a little bit of salt. Once the hot leeks and scallions hit the spinach and all these herbs, it just smells magical, let me tell you. Now we're going to add our breadcrumbs, and our breadcrumbs are going to absorb any excess moisture that may be in here. About a tablespoon of dried dill. If you have fresh dill, go right ahead and use it. But dried dill and dried oregano are two herbs that are great, and they still retain a lot of their flavor when they're dry. You don't have to worry about using them fresh. It smells so good. And now we're going to add the feta cheese. It's crumbled. Now the recipe says 1.5 to 2 cups, but who follows recipes when it comes to cheese? I always put more. Put as much as you want, but like 1.5 cups is the minimum that you need in here. And you want to get some really good quality feta cheese. If you can find a sheep's milk feta, that's really loaded with flavor. It's smooth, it's creamy, and it's what you want. I'm going to add a little bit of black pepper to this. And then at this point, before you add the egg in, once it's really nice and combined and mixed, give it a taste for seasoning. And if you need more salt, go ahead and add it. To me, that's perfect. About a flat teaspoon of salt is all it needed, but you can season it to your liking. This smell right here reminds me of my childhood. My mom used to roll out her own dough, a much lighter dough than this, and she would make little spanakopitaki, which were like, she used to fry them, and they were so delicious. And I remember the smell of the mint and the parsley and the dill, and it just brings me back to childhood, makes me feel like I'm 10 again. Smells so good. Now at this point, I'm going to add my egg. Pour it in there, mix it up, and then we're just going to put it into our crust. So now I'm just going to pour this into the center. Now if you were using phyllo dough or a pie paste, puff pastry or something, you can use a nice deep dish, about 9.5 to 10 inch deep dish round pie dish, and you could bake that in that. But when you're using this, you don't need a special pie dish. Now we're just going to fold over and kind of make these nice little rustic edges and press it down. The center should be about 9 inches in diameter once you're done rolling this. And that's it. No need to put egg wash or anything onto this. We're going to pop this into our preheated 400-degree oven, and it's going to cook for about 45 minutes to an hour until everything is nice and set and it's golden brown all around. And I'll show you what that looks like as soon as it's ready. Here it is. Look at that. It's cooked for about 50 minutes. It actually took 50 to 55 minutes. And then after it came out of the oven, you want to make sure that you let it cool and sit for at least 15 to 20 minutes so that the juices redistribute and the pie crust kind of settles and hardens, because it's going to be nice and soft when it comes out of the oven. And then you can go ahead and dig into it. But who wouldn't want to see this presented to them at a holiday table, or if they're just coming over your house for a nice meal? It's delicious. It smells fabulous. I mean, your house will smell better than like a candle. It was lit. The filling is beautiful. It hasn't turned black or anything like that. Sometimes when you boil greens a lot, they turn dark, but these, if you don't overboil them, they won't turn black. It's still moist and I guess juicy, you would say, on the outside, and the crust, I'm telling you, give this a try. It's so good. I'm going to put it on my plate and take a little taste. So good. It's similar to spanakopita, only more rich. You can really taste the mint. You can taste the cheese. The crust is absolutely to die for. Get the recipe on the website, www.dimitrasdishes.com. Trust me, make it, enjoy it. Leave your comments down below. Let me know how it turns out, Jack, especially you. This one's for you. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye, everyone.